Welcome to the Imaginary Gallery. This is TJ, your host, and I'm going to give you an introduction to cognitive therapy, and it's coming from this book, which I've mentioned. And actually, I admit it's out of order because this should have come a long time ago, and I've already skipped ahead in other episodes from this series, but figured I'll put it all together in a chronological order, and this will serve as the introduction to this wonderful thing. Now, of course, I am not claiming that cognitive therapy is the only one and only answer to depression if you've ever suffered through it. But I am here to state that, as mentioned in future videos, I had experienced a terrible, horrifying, crippling version of depression at one point many, many years ago, and reading this book actually really helped. And I believe the purpose of it is for you to help yourself, which, of course, you can do that and see a professional therapist, but the book is a little more intimate and gets really close to you so you can actually work with it on your own rather than the short period you have with the therapist, which, of course, this was recommended to me by such a therapist, so I bought it that first day she said it at Barnes and Noble, and the rest is history. Now, it actually helps in a lot of different ways in your lives if you're a human being. But what I'll do is go through the first chapter, which this is serving as the introduction into cognitive therapy, and we'll pretend like this is the first episode. So, cognitive therapy is based on the belief that your emotions and feelings are directly related to your thoughts. So we'll go ahead with Mr. David D. Burns, MD. We'll go on with his chapter 1, which I'll paraphrase for you to avoid copyright infringement. But he states to us that depression has been called the world's #1 public health problem. In fact, depression is so widespread it is considered the common cold of psychiatric disturbances. But there's a grain of difference between depression and the cold. Depression can kill you. The suicide rate, studies indicate, has been on a shocking increase in the most recent years, even among children and adolescents. This rising death rate has occurred in spite of the billions of antidepressant drugs and tranquilizers that have been dispensed during the last several decades. Well, that's a whole different subject. And he's warning you that it might sound gloomy to hear these words, but before you get even more depressed, he wants to tell you the good news. He says that depression is an illness and not a necessary part of healthy living. And what's more important is you can overcome it by learning some simple methods for mood elevation. He talks about a group of psychiatrists and psychologists at University of Pennsylvania School of Medicine reported a significant breakthrough in the treatment of prevention of mood disorders. Dissatisfied with traditional methods for treating depression, they found them to be slow and ineffective. These doctors developed and systematically tested an entirely new and remarkably successful approach. to depression and other emotional disorders. And he states a series of recent studies confirms that these techniques reduce the symptoms of depression much more rapidly than conventional psychotherapy or drug therapy. The name of this revolutionary treatment is cognitive therapy. Now, this author states he's been centrally involved in the development of this type of therapy, and the book he's written is the first to describe these methods to the general public, and the systematic application and scientific evaluation of this approach in treating clinical depression traces its origins to the innovative work of Dr. Aaron T. Beck, who began to refine his unique approach to mood transformation in the mid-1950s. His pioneering efforts began to emerge into prominence in the past decade because of the research that many mental health professionals have undertaken to refine and evaluate cognitive therapy methods at the University of Pennsylvania Medical Center and at numerous other academic institutions. Cognitive therapy is a fast-acting technology of mood medication that you can learn to apply on your own. It can help you eliminate the symptoms and experience personal growth so you can minimize future upsets and cope with depression more effectively in the future. The simple, effective mood control techniques of cognitive therapy provide. Number one is rapid symptomatic improvement. In milder depressions, relief from your symptoms can often be observed in as short a time as 12 weeks. Number two, understanding. A clear explanation of why you get moody and what you can do to change your moods. You will learn what causes your powerful feelings, how to distinguish normal from abnormal emotions, and how to diagnose and assess the severity of your upset. Number three, self-control. You will learn how to apply safe and effective coping strategies that will make you feel better whenever you're upset. I will guide you, or he will guide you, as you develop a practical, realistic, step-by-step self-help plan. As you apply it, your moods can come under greater voluntary control. Number four is prevention and personal growth. Genuine and long-lasting prophylaxis, prevention, of future mood swings can effectively be based on a reassessment of some basic values and attitudes which lie at the core of your tendency towards painful depressions. He will show you how to challenge and reevaluate certain assumptions about the basis for human worth. The problem-solving and coping techniques you'll learn encompass every crisis to modern life, from minor irritations to major emotional collapse. These will include realistic problems such as divorce, death, failure, as well as those vague, chronic problems that seem to have no obvious external cause, such as low self-confidence, frustration, guilt, or apathy. The question may now occur to you: is this just another self-help pop psychology? And he says actually that cognitive therapy is one of the first forms of psychotherapy which has been shown to be effective through rigorous scientific research under the critical scrutiny of the academic community. This therapy is unique in having professional evaluation and validation at the highest academic levels. It's not just another self-help fad, but a major development that has become an important part of the mainstream of modern psychiatric practice and research. Cognitive therapy's academic foundation has enhanced its impact and should give it staying power for years to come. But don't be turned off by the professional status that cognitive therapy has acquired. Unlike much traditional psychotherapy, it is not occult and anti-intuitive. It is practical and based on common sense. And you can make it work for you. Now he says the first principle of cognitive therapy is that all your moods are created by your cognitions, or thoughts. A cognition refers to the way you look at things, your perceptions, mental attitudes, and beliefs. It includes the way you interpret things, what you say about something or someone to yourself. You feel the way you do right now because of the thoughts you're thinking at this moment. He wants to illustrate for you. So he says, how have you been feeling as you read this? You might have been thinking, cognitive therapy sounds too good to be true. It would never work for me. Well, if your thoughts run along these lines, you are feeling skeptical or even discouraged. What causes you to feel that way? Your thoughts. You create these feelings by the dialogue you're having with yourself about this book. Conversely, you may have felt a sudden uplift in mood because you thought, hey, this sounds like something which might finally help me, which is exactly what I felt when I first read it. Your emotional reaction is generated not by the sentences you're reading, but by the way you are thinking. The moment you have a certain thought and believe it, you will experience an immediate emotional response. Your thought actually creates the emotion. The second principle is when you're feeling depressed, your thoughts are dominated by a pervasive negativity. You perceive not only yourself, but entire world in dark and gloomy terms. What's worse is you'll come to believe that things really are as bad as you imagine them to be. If you are substantially depressed, you will even begin to believe that things always have been and always will be negative. As you look into your past, you remember all the bad things that happened to you. And as you try to imagine future, you only see emptiness and unending problems and anguish. This bleak vision creates a sense of hopelessness. The feeling is absolutely illogical, but it seems so real that you have convinced yourself that your inadequacy will go on forever. The third principle is of substantial philosophical and therapeutic importance. Their research has documented that The negative thoughts which cause your emotional turmoil nearly always contain gross distortions. Although these thoughts appear valid, you will learn that they are irrational or just plain wrong, and that twisted thinking is a major cause of your suffering. The implications are important. Your depression is probably not based on accurate perceptions of reality, but is often the product of what he calls mental slippage. Suppose you believe that what he has said has validity. What good will it do you? Now we come to the most important result of our clinical research. You can learn to deal with your moods more effectively if you master methods that help you pinpoint and eliminate the mental distortions which cause you to feel upset. As you begin to think more objectively, you will begin to feel better. And then he asks, how effective is cognitive therapy compared with other established and accepted methods for treating depression? Can the new therapy enable severely depressed individuals to get better without drugs? How rapidly does cognitive therapy work? Do the results last? Then he talks about a study many years ago that was taking place with blah, 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 and a pilot study comparing cognitive therapy with one of the most widely used and effective antidepressant drugs on the market, tofranil. Over 40 severely depressed patients were randomly assigned to two groups. One group was to receive individual cognitive therapy sessions and no drugs, while the other group would be treated with tofranil. I'm not even tofranil and no therapy. This either or research design was chosen because it provided the maximum opportunity to see how the treatments compared. Up to that time, no form of psychotherapy had been shown to be as effective for depression as treatment with an antidepressant drug. This is why antidepressants have experienced such a wave of interest from the media, well, again, another story, and have come to be regarded by the professional community in the past few decades as the best treatment available for depression. Both groups of patients were treated for a 12-week period. All of them were systematically evaluated with extensive psychological testing prior to therapy, as well as at numerous monthly intervals for a year after completion. The doctors who performed these psychological tests were not the therapists who administered the treatments. This ensured an objective assessment of the merits of each form of treatment. Patients were suffering from moderate to severe depression. The majority had failed to improve in spite of previous treatment with two or more therapists. 3/4 were suicidal at the time of the referral. The average patient had been troubled by chronic or intermittent depression for 8 years. Many were absolutely convinced their problems were insoluble and felt their lives were hopeless. Your own mood problems may not seem as overwhelming as theirs. A tough patient population was chosen so that the treatment could be tested under the most difficult and challenging conditions. The outcome of the study was quite unexpected and encouraging. Cognitive therapy showed itself to be substantially superior to antidepressant drug therapy in all respects. What I find interesting is the book says at the bottom actually, it says, the clinically proven drug-free treatment for depression, which indicates this book is supposed to be an alternative to, let's say, antidepressants. However, at the very beginning of the book, which is the part we're looking at, he does mention that one particular study stated that when people were treated with either traditional psychiatric antidepressants and the other group was treated with the cognitive therapy, that they've learned that the combination of both drugs and the therapy were the most effective than either one alone. So change your title. But no, that's just an option. But he's asking, well, how much improvement can you hope for? The average cognitively treated patient experienced a substantial elimination of symptoms by the end of treatment. Many reported that they felt the happiest they ever had in their lives. They emphasized that the mood training brought about a sense of self-esteem and confidence. No matter how miserable, depressed, and pessimistic you feel now, this author is convinced you can experience beneficial effects if you are willing to apply the methods described in this book with persistence and consistency. How long do the effects last? The findings from follow-up studies during the year after the completion of treatment are quite interesting, he tells us. While many individuals from both groups had occasional mood swings during the year, both groups continued on the whole to maintain the gains that they demonstrated by the end of 12 weeks of active treatment. Which group, he's asking, fared better during the follow-up period? The psychological tests as well as patients' own reports confirmed that the cognitive therapy group continued to feel substantially better, and these differences were statistically significant. The relapse rate over the course of the year in the cognitive therapy group was less than half of what was observed in the drug patients, which he says are sizable differences that favored patients treated with the new approach. And then he says, does this mean that I can guarantee you will never again have the blues? After using cognitive methods to eliminate your current depression? He says, no way. That would be like saying that once you've achieved good physical conditions through daily exercise, that you'd never again be short of breath. Part of being human means you get upset from time to time. So this author guarantees you will not achieve a state of never-ending bliss, which means you'll have to reapply the techniques that help you if you want to continue to master your moods. There's a difference between feeling better, which can occur spontaneously, and getting better, which results from systematically applying and reapplying the methods that will lift your mood whenever the need arises. What's interesting is the second chapter in this book gives you a diagnostic tool to diagnose your own moods. which I won't cover that here, run to your local bookstore or go to your Amazon used book store and purchase it if you'd like to give yourself a test, which he claims is the first step in the cure. But we move on, after you do such a thing, to the third chapter, which is about understanding your moods. You feel the way you think. Which, again, I said in my life at least, it's true at times. But as I said also, I don't necessarily think that that's the only thing that determines. It might be, maybe not, who knows. But I'm just saying that it's helped me a lot. So, because depression has been viewed as an emotional disorder throughout the history of psychiatry, therapists from most schools of thought place a strong emphasis on getting in touch with your feelings. This author's research reveals the unexpected, that depression is not an emotional disorder at all. The sudden change in the way you feel is of no more causal relevance than a runny nose is when you have a cold. Every bad feeling you have is the result of your distorted, negative thinking. Illogical, pessimistic attitudes play the central role in the development and the continuation of all your symptoms. Because negative thinking always accompanies a depressive episode, or any painful emotions for that matter, your moody thoughts are likely to be entirely different from those you have when you are not upset. A young woman about to receive her PhD expressed it in this way: "Every time I become depressed, I feel as if I have been hit with a sudden cosmic jolt and begin to see things differently. The change can come within less than an hour. My thoughts become negative and pessimistic. As I look into the past, I become convinced that everything I've ever done is worthless. Any happy period seems like an illusion. My accomplishments appear as false as the facade for the set of a Western movie. I become convinced that the real me is worthless and inadequate. I can't move forward with my work because I've become frozen with doubt. But I can't stand still because the misery is unbearable." Well, Dr. Burns says you'll learn, as she did, that the negative thoughts that flood your mind are the actual cause of your self-defeating emotions. These thoughts are what keep you lethargic and make you feel inadequate. Your negative thoughts, or cognitions, are the most frequently overlooked symptoms of your depression. These cognitions contain the key to relief and are therefore your most important symptoms. Every time you feel depressed about something, try to identify a corresponding negative thought you had just prior to and during the depression, because these thoughts have actually created your bad mood. By learning to restructure them, you can change your mood. You're probably skeptical of all this because your negative thinking has become such a part of your life that it's automatic.
The fact is, I'm now a transgendered lesbian, and I couldn't be happier. This is the happiest day of my life. So, sorry, but you're not going to be included in my life anymore. I'd like to dump you on a post-it note, but since you're here right now, consider this my last communication to you, and I wish you luck in your paranoid life.